Hello, this is Jeffrey from Cinetech RBCC team. From this video, I will be continue introduce RSM, and this video will focus on the details about configuring RSM. There is an installation and configuration guide, talk a lot of details and each step-by-step procedures to configuring RSM. However, this video is to cover the key points and key steps we need to configure in the relative components like Call Manager, UCCE, and RSM, and also with some explanations and the common mistakes that people usually make when we're configuring the components for RSM. Before we get into the details of configuring RSM, I would like to recap the RSM architectures from the previous video. RSM is a remote silent monitoring, and it is able to monitor agents from anywhere, for example, PSTN, and from any headset, analog headsets, or normal mobile phones. As long as you are able to dial into the IVR, like CVP or IPRVR, then you will be able to monitor the agents you are entitled to. RSM in architecture, one way it is simulating as if 7941 SIP IP phones to Call Manager, and the other way it is simulating the supervisor desktop to the UCCE environment. RSM leverages Call Manager silent monitoring features and invoke this feature by CTI JTAPI connections. And with the CM-based silent monitoring, RSM will be able to receive the agent and customer stream from the built-in bridge of the agent IP phone, and then pass on this stream to the IPRVR via the HTTP streamed voice, and then IPRVR or the VRU system pass on this stream to the monitor or the supervisor via the RTP, normal RTP. And that's why, and this is how the RSM works for enabling the supervisor to monitor the agents from anywhere. Before we get into details of configurations, let's touch some RSM internals. RSM actually have two services. One is VLE engine service, the other one is phone SIM service. Basically, the VLE engine handles requests from the CTIOS and manage the connections with the CTIOS server, and also manage the JTAPI QBE connections to the Call Manager CTI. It is sit on top of the Tomcat application, and that's why you need to install Tomcat for the VLE engines. The VLE engines, one side manage interact with CTIOS JTAPI with Call Manager. In the other hand, is also manage the interactions with IPA, IVR, and VRU requests. It is also the service that takes the RTP streams from the agent's built-in bridge, extract out the data, pass on to the IPRVR as if the prompt in HTTP streaming. So VLE engine is very important in RSM. The other important service is the phone SIM service. These components manage the simulating phones to the Call Managers. It is simulating the 7941 phones and simulating the registration to the Call Manager and interact with the Call Manager so that their RSM is able to receive the stream from the agent IP phones. And here is the diagrams regarding the internal of the RSM. So we have VLE engine service, and one side is VLE engine leverage the JTAPI plugin API to interact with call manager through the JTAPI interface, and also it uses CTLOS cron library to manage the connections and retrieve information from CTLOS server. And the Simphone SIM service, we're actually talking to the call manager about the SIP protocols to register SIP phones to the call managers, as well as receiving the RTP stream from the agent phones. Alright, let's get into the details of the configurations for RSM. There are a lot of information detailed by step-by-step procedures in the RSM configuration guide, but in this video, I'm going to touch the key points when you configuring the RSM and the explanations why we need to do such configurations. Starting from the simulated phones, since RSM is simulating IP phones to the call manager, we will have to create these devices in the call manager so that the RSM is able to register those devices. As you know, for the phone devices in the call manager, they will need a MAC address, and the MAC address for the RSM simulated phones is a dummy MAC address. You will specify the dummy MAC address in the RSM configurations wizard, and this is where you specified you will specify the MAC address, how the MAC address for the simulated phones looks like. For example, I specify the simulated phones as this, then I will start in creating the first simulated phones in the call manager device configuration page. And this will be the device name of the call manager in the call manager for the simulated phones. And also, you will need to add the device, or you need to add the direct number to the simulating phone devices. So similarly, you will have a starting direction number. So the first direction number will be configured on the first Simphone device in the call manager, and you also need to specify the starting line number on the RSM configuration wizard. So the starting line number configuration and the starting MAC configuration on RSM would need to match what you configured in the call manager as the first Simphone device name and the Simphone device line number. And then if you want to configure 20 Simphones so that you are able to monitor multiple agents by multiple supervisors at the same time, then you will start to incrementing each device, the Simphone device one by one, and the line direction number one by one accordingly. When we're configuring Simphones, as I said previously, you will have, for example, 20 Simphones for the RSM, and this has become a pool of the Simphones the RSM will use. However, RSM actually used this pool of Simphones for two purposes. Normally, the first five, for example, 5 Simphones in the pool will be used for the supervisor logins. Imagine when you log in from the supervisor desktop, you will log into an instrument or the extension number. So for RSM, when simulating the supervisor login, it would also need the supervisor to log into a certain device with a specified number. Normally, the first 5 Simphones and the first 5 direction number is what we call login pool in the Simphones, and RSM will normally use the first 5 devices to log in the supervisor into the UCCE environment. The concept of the login pool just actually means that how many Simphones you will tell the RSM to use as a login pool, and it's actually you are telling RSM what devices or how many devices RSM should use when they log in as if the supervisor desktop the UCC environment. You can configure the number of the Simphones to be used as a login pool, and the way you specify this is through the RSM configuration wizard. For example, in our configuration wizard, we specify the first 5 Simphones will be belonging to the login pool, and hence RSM only used the first 5 Simphone devices for the supervisor login. In the other hand, it means it can only allow maximum 5 supervisors to log in at the same time. And then we specified we have maximum 10 monitoring phones, which means we only allow maximum 10 monitoring sessions at the same time. So altogether, we actually need to create 15 Simphones in a call manager. As a non-UCCE configurations, when you configuring the login device for the supervisor, you need to associate the IP phone or the Simphone devices with the PG user, so that when the supervisor log in, it is able to log into that device. That means when we have the first 5 devices in a Simphone to be used for the supervisor login request, we will actually need to associate those 5 devices with the PG user. Remember, we only need to associate the login pool device, Simphone devices with the PG user. And for the monitoring Simphone devices, we don't need to associate them with the PG user. And then after we associate the devices with the PG user, we also need to create device target from the admin workstations in the UCCE to login Simphone devices. So for example, you can have a look at the Simphones, the first 6 Simphone devices and how they config in the call manager. So we go to the application user, and then we will have the PG user, and the PG user is only associated with the first 5 Simphone devices. Okay, after we finish the Simphone's configurations, creations, and associate the first 5 Simphones or the login pool Simphones with the PG user, we now need to create an application user for RSM in the call manager. Why? Because as we know, RSM uses the JTAPI interface to control the monitoring phones to start the monitor session to the agent IP phones. And also the RSM need to use the CTI JTAPI interface to invoke CM-based silent monitoring feature. That's why we have to create the RSM user and give the RSM user the CTI privilege to allow the RSM for the call monitoring and control the monitoring devices to start them. So let's take a look at the RSM user configurations. The RSM user will have the standard CTI enabled, privilege and call monitoring privilege. And also the RSM user will need to associate with the monitoring Simphone devices. And one common mistake the people will make is they will also associate the logging pool Simphone devices with the RSM user. However, we must not associate the logging pool Simphone devices with the RSM user, because the logging pool Simphone devices is only used for the supervisor login, and RSM will only should use the monitoring Simphone devices to receive the monitoring sessions RTP packets. And that's why it is also noted in the RSM configuration guide that when we associating the Simphone devices with the RSM user, we associate all the monitoring device except for the login pool device. Once we finish the Simphone's configurations and RSM user configurations, the last step for the pre-installations configuration we need to do is to create a supervisor in the UCCE environment from the admin workstations. And since the supervisor is logging in to the system via the telephonic user interface, when we're creating the supervisor account in the UCCE environment, we need to make sure we create the password as the numeric number, which is we are creating the PIN for the supervisor to log in. If you create the alphanumeric password for the supervisor login, practically the supervisor has no way to enter the alphanumeric strings from the telephone keypad. That's why it is important to create the supervisor in the ICM with a numeric password. After we config all the prerequisites on the UCCE and call managers, we are ready to install the RSM. Firstly, we need to download the JTAPI plugin from the call manager web page for the RSM to use. To install RSM on the server, you just need to launch the RSM setup.exe the RSM media, or you could actually download the RSM from the cisco.com software download page. The installation itself is straightforward and you can just follow the prompt. After the installation, you will launch the RSM Configuration Manager utility to start to configuring the RSM. The RSM configuration utilities is to configure the RSM to integrate with the call manager and the UCCE environment. You will specify, for example, the name of the cluster is not a name that you have to match with anyone. You just give any cluster name you would like to is a trivial name you would like to give to the core media cluster for your configuration reference point. And then you provide the number of the login Simphones and the number of the monitoring phones. The total number of the login Simphones and the monitoring phones will be the total number of the Simphones you actually created in the core manager. And then you will specify the peripheral ID. This peripheral ID is for the PIM peripheral ID for the core manager connections. You will have an agent PG, which is also the CMPG in the ICM environment, and we need to put down the peripheral ID for the CM-PIM in these configuration settings. And then we will specify the RSM user we created in the core manager and the password. Also, we specify the starting Simphone device MAC address and the starting direction number for the Simphone devices and the SIP transportation. And then we specify the core manager CTI manager IP address and the core manager surface IP address and the SIP port number for the registration of the Simphones. And this is to specify the CTI OS server site 8 IP address and the port number, and if you have a redundant CTI OS server, you will specify this redundant IP address and the port number here. That's actually what you need to configure for the RSM. After the installation and configuring the RSM, you will actually see the phone SIM service and the VLE engine service is installed on the server, and you can start the services from the service panel. You should also notice you should have a Tomcat service running on the server as well. So because the VLE engine is running on top of Tomcat, that's why you need to have a Tomcat service running on the server. After we install RSM and start the RSM services, the last step we will do is to integrate RSM with the VIU. Use IPIVR as examples. To integrate RSM with VIU, we will have an IPIVR, and we need to upload the prompts for the RSM into the IPIVR. We can find the provided prompts for the IPIVR in the RSM server and C drive Cisco RSM installation directory and core flows folder. And within the core flow folders, we have IPIVR, and this is the IPIVR script and the prompt zip files to be used for the IPIVR announcements. To upload these prompt zip files, we would navigate to the IPIVR web page. After we log into the CRS or UC6 IPIVR administration web page, we will go to the prompt management, and we will upload the prompts from the button upload zip files. And after the upload, you will actually see a folder for the RSM has been created to contain the prompts we have uploaded from the RSM server. after we upload the prompts, we need to create the RPIVR application, and the application will actually refer to the sample RSM script provided by the RSM installations, and this is the application the supervisor will call in and trigger it. So for example, when we go into the application management in the RPIVR, we will actually create an RSM application, and we will refer the RSM application to the RSM script, and we just specify where is the RSM, which is the IP address for the RSM server, and we'll add the trigger for this application. And this trigger is actually configured in the call manager as one of the CTI route point, so that when the supervisor call to this number, call manager will trigger or will pass the call to the RPIVR, and the RSM application will be triggered so that the caller will be connected to the RPIVR and interact with RPIVR and log into the supervisor desktop from the telephone user interface. And this is how the caller is able to get to the RPIVR to interact with the RSM. Just a reminder, you can actually find the RSM script from the RPIVR folder, and you can actually upload the script through the RPIVR script management. And then from the RPIVR application management, you refer the RSM application to the script. You upload it for the RSM application and specify the RSM IP address. So the RPIVR will interact with the RSM through the network to this IP address. So this is how we should configure the RSM to integrate with the call manager, UCCE, and RPIVR. To recap, to configure RSM, we need to create the Simphone devices in the call manager, and then we need to create the RSM user so that RSM can use this JTAPI user to invoke CM-based silently monitoring feature. And also we need to create and associate the first 5 of the login pool Simphone devices to the PG user only, and then we associate the monitoring Simphone devices except the login pool Simphone device with the RSM user. And then we will create the CTI route point as a telephonic trigger to trigger the RSM application in IPIVR. We will create the RSM applications and upload the prompts to the IPIVR. We will also install the JTAPI plugin onto the RSM server and install the RSM onto the server. And then we use the configuration manager utility on the RSM to configure the RSM for the information about how RSM and where the RSM need to integrate with the call manager, CTI server, and so on. We also create the supervisor user and account in the ICM environment and use the numeric PIN number as the RSM supervisor login credentials. So this is all the key points we need to configure the RSM, and in the following video we will focus on the troubleshooting. Thank you very much.